Need to thank Amélia and Rodrigo? Okay. Amélia and Rodrigo, thank you very much, Rodrigo, for inviting us for the 5th time, I think, or 6th, to Porto Academy. There's other practices as well. No, we're very happy, Dario and I, to be back. We both studied here many years ago, better not to say how many.
15 and 16?
Yeah, we have been back many times, but just visiting. This is really the first time that we're given a microphone in this space, so it's really meaningful for us. This is the place where we met, and at the end of the day, even though we followed a bit different paths within life in Mendrisio, our education and all of that, I think many of the origins of the things we do or we try to do at the office now really came from here. In light of this, there's also another relationship to the school, which is a course that both of us, even we didn't really know each other when we were studying here, so we were following the same or different studios and courses, but as I said, each one following, getting different things out of the university. But there was one that when we finally started the practice, we realized we had in common, which was a course of history of architecture led by Professor Bruno Reichlin, where whatever the topic or the points being lectured on, he used a graphic system that relied never showing one image only, but always showing through an old slide projector, showing things in couples. No? And this thing that he referred to as multitextuality, at the end of the day, relied on not looking for knowledge or information in one single image, but always juxtaposing pairs of things and trying to have an ever-changing and relative meaning of one piece in relation to the other. So we realized that impacted us so much from early on that now and then, whenever we have to talk about our work or the way the things we think about, we realize that it's a very effective, it's a very loyal way to how we think and we try to make architecture. So as part of this introduction, we just want to say this. As you can see now, no one is moving the slides. We did a thing, we have a number of slides following a sequence of topics, but we pressed play 2 minutes ago and they're going on their own thing. So rather than talking about the things you're gonna look at there, we're just gonna try to contextualize as they go, some sort of pecha kucha, and sometimes we'll be a bit behind, sometimes we're gonna have to rush to catch up with them, but this way we can make sure that the lecture is 45 minutes and not 3 hours, as usual. So the topic that we chose this time to talk about is every time we have to talk about our work, we try to look back at our work and try to find a commonality or a topic that can, in a more rigid or flexible way, unite all the things we do without trying to force, nevertheless, a continuous thematic in all of it, but really trying to find things that now and then appear and disappear within our work. So the topic for today is something we call collective outcomes, which is something we have been talking and writing about at the office and at school. And it's something that comes from observation. So again, it's like it's a notion more than a concept, and we can see it there. We identified 3 different modes that the architect can relate to the community itself. The first one, which is maybe the one that things have been working for centuries, which is the architect as a total creator. Is the architect as one person can, just by deciding things, can make a city or can make an empire, or can make things like that. The second one, the figure of the architect, evolved to something that we call the orchestra director, which is a thing where the architect is surrounded by people of different professions or different specialties, and the architect is the one that coordinates and dictates the common direction of the things. But now we realize that from recent times, a different model is developing, which is what we call collective outcomes. And it's one where really, in order to react to all the overlapping series of crises we are experiencing, the crisis of the city, the environmental collapse, and all of that, we think that the role of the architect has to evolve to something else, which is this overlapping of people of different specialties, and we're not talking only about professionals, but also about inhabitants and users of building to really work together in a network rather than just in being coordinating or following the lead of the architect. We will, in this lecture, we're going to try to illustrate this principle of collective outcomes, which again is a very open-ended and flexible notion, through 3 groups of projects. One of them is 2 live projects we are in the process of finishing in Ticino. Hopefully, says Dario. Then we're going to see a group project in London, which is more at an urban scale. And then we're going to look at 2 competitions, and we're going to finalize with the things we have been trying to do at university at Kingston in London in connection to all of this. Again, not all of these things are not connected consciously, but we realize that they're part of the same overall agenda. So it's not like we go to school every Thursday and try to implement this kind of framework, but actually it's something that part of it's not really even for us to decide, because it's the way the world is moving in. And then maybe with a smaller degree of consciousness, we are trying to connect what we do at the office with what we try, not really to teach the newer generations, but to talk about with them and share.
So as Diego said, we start with 2 projects that are currently under construction. We're supposed to finish 6 months ago, and hopefully we will finish December of this year. These 2 buildings were built firstly 60 years apart. So we have a hotel in Lugano, former Hotel Stella, in the 1920s, and then a house of 1980s, both of them in Ticino, one in Ascona and one in Lugano. From the architectural point of view, of course, it was much easier to demolish both of them, to bring the new building comply to the new laws and rules. But even because you can saw before, the quality of the 2 buildings was not peculiar to justify a retaining of them. However, not only for sustainable reason, but mainly also for legal consequence resulting from a change in development laws, we decide not to demolish and to work with them instead. So the first that we see now is the hotel. As I say, it's a former Hotel Stella that will become B5 Boutique Hotel. It's a 1920 hotel. It's interesting that it used to be a hotel for the whole 100 years. Only 4 different owners have it, and through these 100 years, each one of them just added line and line to add rooms, and especially bathroom. So when here you can see the image of the rooms when we found them. So it was really like 1970 internal lining that hide totally the hidden gem of the existing building. So our work, our intervention was really about removing all the possible layer, and we had to do it in an open strategy, because as the hotel was running when we started the project, the construction permit, we didn't know what we would find under. So also with the client asking us how will be the new rooms, our answer is we don't know. We need to start the project. We can just tell you that we will have 20 rooms, we will have 20 bathrooms. That it's more than the 14 they used to have. We will fix whatever it is, the vertical circulation. We will have elevator that was missing, stairs which follow the rules. But really the character of the inside of the rooms, we don't know, we will not know. And only now that we are really close to the end of the building, we start really to understand which will be the character of each room. As the building was this collage of spaces, in heights, material. Really, I think we never have found so many variety of construction system, element, wall typology. It's really like in Italian we have this word, amalgama, in English something like amalgamation, that really give you the idea. But running, you can see, so we have some part that in stone, sometimes in brick. We did a light extension with metal framework for a structural reason. And all the time we will show this kind of strata where we cut whatever we added, like the concrete or the wood that we cut it, will be all part of the expression. And of course we couldn't know it before until we start the work. And then sometimes we can find also this hidden gem, like this really beautiful stucco ceiling, that luckily was exactly in the room that we decided to have as a lobby. And this is sometimes a really fortuitous coincidence. And one of the main interventions we did is this like massive staircase that will be really scenographic in the middle of everything. In this project, we really collaborate a lot with the client first, but then with graphic designer, marketing consultant, economic consultant. It was really a huge team and a big effort all together to really understand not only from the architectural point of view, the spatial point of view, but really what this building will be and how it will work, and how the space that we were designing were right for the use that the client proposed. And the typology of the client of the hotel they were aiming of. So we're supposed to be finished right now, the hotel. So this is a picture of yesterday. So you can see that we are a little bit late, sadly. But this is part of the process, and even if it's painful for us, it's really painful for the client that yesterday was not really happy, to be honest. But at the end, the comment we left yesterday, it was the building will stay forever for us, so it's we take it, but just finish. And then the second building under construction, again a similar fate about timing. In this case, it was a house. It was, as we saw before, in 1980. In Ticino, we have this kind of Mediterranean revival style that it's really not so interesting, quite generic. So when the client asked us to redo the interior and the reorganization, we could just stop there, just changing kitchen, bathroom tiles, and put maybe a strata of insulation in the outside. But we tried to take the occasion to do a more serious intervention. So as we saw before, we literally chopped out the facade, the existing one, but we kept more than the 80% of the main structure of the building. And with this single intervention, we managed to keep, as I say, the 80% of the existing house, but transforming it like 200%. Here you can see again how all the slab, all the three walls on the back, it was totally kept, and only this cantilever structure on the front and the new structure holding the slab was located. But all the experience from the interior to the exterior totally changed, and again, it's this kind of amalgamation for us, that the new and the old, and probably if we would demolish the whole building, we wouldn't do this sort of building. We wouldn't do this kind of intervention in the stairs, that it's popping out. And of course, there is a little homage of our Maria Botta. But it's all part of the process of looking what to keep, what to transform, and which will be the character of this new founded house.
I was really proud of how closely I had stuck to the rhythm, but I think you won by 2 seconds. Okay, so now we moved to London, and whereas in the projects that Dario just talked about, this idea about the collective outcomes really relate to the group of professionals that, along with the architect, collaborate to mainly, this thing about collective outcomes is dealing with the existing and reusing existing structures. and all of that. So now we do a big jump, and we're in London, and this is a different situation. The collective in this project doesn't really come from the team of professionals or designers, but more from a large group of people, a random almost group of people who happen, the only thing they have in common is that they live in the same place. It's a Chalcos estate, so basically it's a 1970s, early 1970s group of, like an estate, a group of houses developed by the same developer, but of course in 50 years has changed and has evolved in almost every way. So the images before shown some of these houses that we started working with almost on an individual basis. And after a couple of years, 5 years, we realized that we have done like 10 of them. For different people, same type of house, but different people, different stories, different everything, different needs. So we began, the interesting thing here is that when working with a larger space or an urban structure, normally one begins with the large scale, with the master plan, and then once there's some sort of clarity with the master plan, one moves to the scale of the building, and only then one can really start talking about the domestic and the way inhabitation happens. And in this case, it was the opposite. We began by being engaged with different individual clients, and gradually, after accumulating not a crazy amount of experience, but after trying 4 or 5 different cases, we were invited to actually consolidate all of this knowledge that we had acquired to come up with a vision for the future of the whole estate. There are about 200 houses, and here the interesting thing is the reversal of that thing. You begin with the bathroom and with the storage of a house, and from there you gradually grow in scale, and you leave the scale to really talk about the commonalities, which is the public space in the estate and the way the houses should grow and all of that. All of this was intended to be a self-built process. So basically, individual residents can decide to engage an architect, they can decide to engage us if they're clever, but they can engage someone else, or they can decide not to engage anyone. So everything we had to do as part of these rules for the development of the estate had to be flexible and simple enough for anyone to be able to build them without messing them up. No? So rather than having a really high architectural ambition, we decided that the right strategy was more to do something that could work when repeated 200 times ideally, and by almost any kind of person. So these images show the individuals of intervention. Sometimes we have to do the whole house and only leave the external structure. Some other times they're more like focused little interventions that still grain by grain end up redefining the estate. So the idea is that in the next 15 years that all of the estate will have developed. Actually, I didn't say, but it's basically adding another story to the different typologies. At the end of the day, the estate will be a new sort of building, a new sort of place. It's like in a car or in a bicycle, when you start replacing one piece at a time, and one day you realize that nothing from the existing remains. At the end of the day, the individual projects are very simple typological interventions and adjustments, but it's really in the totality. This is one of the sectors only. There's like 5 or 6 of these chunks of houses, and even though the house types are particularly or not particularly different between them, the way in which these different units associate is different in every sector of this estate. So that's an abstracted image of a house type. It's a 2-story house built in white brick, and basically the design guidelines, more than a design, we're talking about design guidelines. What of the existing, you take their houses built 50 years ago with a really low budget. They were intended to be social housing, but halfway through construction they went private. And it's really what to take. The ambition here is not to revolutionize or completely change the aspect or the urban character of the things, but more work from the inside to the outside. All of these things we have, actually at the end of the day what we were commissioned was a document called the Design Guidelines, which we will see. That's the residents voting to to see if our design guidelines would be implemented or not at church as where one goes to vote for urban matters in London. We won by one vote, so our design guidelines are being implemented, and it means that everyone needs to follow them. Some people were against them, saying, why should we have guidelines and all of that? It's an extra complication, but actually, with time, during that night at church, like a priest, I explained to them by regulating change and the way that this communality of 200 different clients would make things easier, not more difficult in terms of managing the space of the estate. And these are just some examples of these documents. It's like an internal planning document we propose for them. And again, here we're not talking about architectural invention or high compositional skills, but just how to manage change when you have to deal not with one client, but with 200, and many of them not particularly easy to deal with. This is not being recorded, right?
Yes, it is, sadly.
Okay, well, I'll stop there then. And now some of the first, I mean, not the first, but some of the first houses after the implementation of the design guidelines are being built, some by us and some by other people who think they're better architects and not being architects. And we will see how it works out.
And as you can see, we work a lot in the office. We don't sleep much. And as 6 hours of sleep are too much, we like a lot to do competition every year. And for competition, in this case, we will show one in London for the Swiss Embassy and one in Locarno for the new Museum of Natural History that we did with William Guthrie. I will speak about that a little bit later. About the Swiss Embassy, again, it's interesting, like also the competition we are doing lately, it's about reuse of existing building, reimaging them. And in this case, we have like a 1970 building with like, again, an agglomeration of 3 parts, even if it was built in the 70s altogether. And we had the task to reimagine all the floors of the new embassy. So you can imagine the complexity of having housing, offices, multi-purpose place, etc. All in the same framework, and how to transform the building totally from the outside, but keeping the 100% of the structure. So again, how we saw in Ascona in the hotel, it's how punctual but important transformation can totally change everything. Also in the quality of the office, of course an office, it is an office today, will be an office tomorrow, but just in this important modification of how the space it's organized, change totally the quality of the building. And then in the extension, there was this multi-purpose room that for us was like an in-between space, not only about function, but also about climate. And all around the concept of the embassy, we bring this, also the title of the motto was Botanische Botschaft, that it's like botanic embassy. How to bring the in-between space of waiting, like something's more interesting than just a bench where to wait for a visa or something. And jumping in Locarno, this was again another competition with, as I said, William Guthrie. It was the extension of an existing monastery with like more than 500 years of life. And here the brief, they did a study before, and they decided that the new building had to be in the south. But for us was totally agree with the position in the south, but how you can see here, the actual park had this important relation north-south between the garden, the existing wall, and then the mountains of Gambarogno. And the master plan that was given us supposed to have here like a building blocking this kind of view. So what we did, it was really to reverse a little bit what was requested in the brief. And so in the new building, we didn't put the whole museum with the exhibition space as requested, but other way we decided to put the main rooms of the museum in between the new and the old, taking the advantage of reusing the existing rooms we will see in a bit the quality of the spaces, that for us really become the first element of the exhibition itself. And as the old complex had more than 300 years, it was interesting, as we saw before in the hotel, etc., to show all these different technique of construction. So our time, the time of before, that all together merge in a amalgamation, where you can, of course, see what is new, what is old, but generate this kind of 1 + 1 = 3, that there is like an extra element. And if the building was totally new, we would miss this opportunity. So now in the image we'll go through, you can see the big room in 6 meters high, with this possibility to see the exhibition rooms from different perspectives, from the ground for up. And again, for us this was possible only reusing the existing building. And vice versa, all the technical programmatic stuff that in the museum are incredibly complex, like offices, laboratorium, storage, etc., are all really safely located in the new building, in the underground, or in the new little building in the other part of the square. And doing this in a really efficient way allow us to save a lot of cubic meters, respect to the contendant. And this saving in cubic meter are the ones that allow us to generate this empty space in the middle of the piazza. So, as we mentioned before, to giving back this local quality of this garden and the relation between garden, public space, wall, and then the big space of the landscape of the mountains. And again, how you can imagine the complexity of the section here, you can really see 500-600 years of history assembling together from the old church, the monastery, and then the new extension. With all this moment in between the new building, the existing wall, and all this circulation that had to generate this sort of promenade architectural in between the new and the old. And also the expression of the new building, of course, it's taking care about how to extend existing. So for, as you know, we love concrete, we use it a lot, still in a way that we believe it's still sustainable. When you use it for the element that they need to last for a really, really long time. And in fact, all the external for us was concrete, and then all the internal was a wood timber structure. This time I ran out, sorry.
We need to balance at the end.
Yeah, I get lost.
Rodrigo is timing it.
We knew it would happen.
To finalize with, we want to show that this is more like a conversation, I think, is all of these things that until now have been office-based or production-based as architects. Then we also somehow find the time to do some teaching in London and in Mexico. And these are some of the projects developed with the students. Every year we have a different brief. The school sets a new agenda for the general brief, and then for our studio we have, of course, a different brief. But we're trying to find these commonalities. So we, as per everything shown until now, we talk about these collective outcomes. At school at Kingston, we have been working with this idea of, again, not an idea, this notion, this possibility of an idea named elemental space. So some years we worked at, during COVID, we came up with the brief of doing a COVID hotel in Heathrow for people to be trapped there forever. This was last year. We did some co-housing in Madrid. The guilty person of this project is somewhere here, hiding in the room.
Row 5. Row 5.
Row 5. Yeah. Chair
Guilty
1.
of charge.
And yeah, again, through working in Europe mainly, we try to visit different places and engage also with local universities, schools of architecture, wherever we go, and try to open this conversation, how the things we think of at the practice, we what happens when we try to explain them to others, and also when students from different contexts need to collaborate somehow. And the key, I think the key bridge between collective outcomes and this idea of elemental space is to teach. I think both Dario and I were educated in this school under a paradigm where you have the master, no? the master professor that gives you the knowledge, and you do your best to try to absorb all the precious knowledge you get. Whereas nowadays, I mean, clearly because the model of education in the UK, at least where we normally teach, is based on having younger practitioners teaching, but also we think we're convinced that it's time for a new model. It's time to invite students to learn how to work in groups, but not only in groups of peers, not only in groups of fellow architects like them, but to work with really early on in their education to conceive architecture as something indivisible with engineering and with services and with art and with as many. Every year we try to change the mix, the balance of things, and it can be a bit shocking at the beginning because it's not the way most universities think of at the moment. But we're pushing with it, and we haven't been fired yet, which is encouraging. And last year we were really happy to take part in Porto Academy, in FAUP, in Portugal, and we tried to implement this in 4 days of effective work, or 5, and we did this really crazy exercise, which was a cubic meter space without a scale, without a function, without anything. It was space per se. No, and the idea was that you didn't know what to expect until you put your eye through the people and a different world with a story, and not in the terms of a narrative, not in the sense of a narrative, but in the sense of a strategy of generating space. So it was a very reactive and really spontaneous thing, completely different, because there's no collaboration, there's no interaction between disciplines or anything, so it's almost like a contradiction of the things we try to do at the more formal setting of university. But we had great fun, and I think as architects we need to be aware of the new skills and new attitudes that the current world really almost forces us to undertake. But this idea of architecture as a dream and as a vision should not disappear completely, because then we become technocrats or technicists only. So you can see all these spatial experiments based completely on the lyrical and the intention of pursuing a vision. Whereabouts some through going back to the key skills learned at architectural school and composition, addition, subtraction, burning. In this case, I mean, I think there was a bit of burning here as well when we studied.
Yes.
Not you, but yeah.
But again, we don't need to leave proof about that. Allegedly happened.
Okay. So some of the spaces were formed by literally burning matter and all of that. So with this really appropriate image of how I'm feeling now, it's so hot, it's so bloody hot. We salute you. Porto Academy visits Mendrisio, and if you have some yes or no questions, we will be happy to answer them. Does anyone like to? Sorry, that's you. You do.
Does anyone have questions?
We were a bit short, or a bit on time. We were expecting to do like 35 minutes, or we talked really for 1 hour. But come on, at least one question, just to. Yeah. Or everything we said is like super impenetrable and rigid.
No, it was so clear,
it's so mind-blowing that you're still processing it, I know.
or it was extremely clear or not clear at all. So the possibility usually are the two, or both of them.
No, because we have slides still for 2 minutes, so we cannot. We need to keep talking. Good. Look. Oh, well, you.
I was just wanting to ask a question about the use of concrete, and you said that you think it's actually environmentally appropriate, whereas I think it's something that's been quite demonized in architecture, at least from my perspective. Is it something you face a lot of backlash from when you try and convince clients that it is the right choice when there's such a heavy push for environmentalism?
We prepared for this one.
Yeah.
We prepared for it, so
No, I know I am the guilty one to say this sentence, and I know I use this as provocation, especially lately, because I know how much concrete is demonized lately. But we really still believe that concrete can be an element in construction. It's not that doing everything, for example, just in timber. It's not true that it's more sustainable. Could look like, but there are so many glue in so many timber used in construction that in reality it's not so sustainable how it's pretended to be. Also, for us, I think you could see through the project, it's really important the time life of all the element. Now, so if we use concrete for an element that will stay 100, 150, or hopefully 200 years, can you imagine that the impact of this little amount of material and energy that we use, it's explained and have a reason to do it. Then, of course, concrete, we use it a lot in Switzerland, especially here in Ticino, because the source of the material are really local. So, for example, in a couple of our houses, the one in Tegna, that is the pyramid in concrete, the quarry where the material used to do the concrete was like 2 kilometers far away. So the truck really was bringing material from one place to another in a really, really short time. And that house supposed to be totally in wood, because the client at first say, I don't want a concrete house, I just want a super efficient wood house. And then through the process of detailing, construction, and calculation, of course, economical from one point, and this I think it's a fun fact that in Ticino at least, a concrete building is cheaper than a wood building. But especially because all the material are really locally sourced. So bringing, I don't know, wood from Slovenia or Finland or whatever the wood was arriving, for us was really not so a good answer in that case. Then we know that we are a little bit polemic in this case about concrete, but because really, personally, I hate so much to see such a wonderful material to be demonized, to say no concrete at all. And also in all the competition we are doing, speaking with a lot of our consultants, they say we can use the timber you requested, but be aware, it's glue.
hopefully that answered. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about the design process. You're in how do you normally work things out, working on projects?
WhatsApp. Yeah. WhatsApp finger. A lot of WhatsApp.
We should be more poetic about it, but yeah. It's we're WhatsApp based. Practice. No, there's a funny anecdote about when COVID arrived and the way everyone else worked changed completely from one day to the other, and they had to do video calls and not meet, and everyone was like, oh, what's so much change, you know? And for Dario and I, since we set the office up, we have been working this way. We envisioned COVID 7 years ago. So yeah, it's really prosaic, almost banal technically, but we talk a lot. I talk twice as much with Dario as with my wife and kids. So, but then of course we meet now and then, and be it in Ticino or in London. Dario is not teaching at the moment in London, but but yeah, we used to meet like 2 days every week.
Yeah, I have to say that was more fun because I used to fly to London every week. So my agenda was, and this I think was not so sustainable, to be honest, because I was taking 2 or 4 planes a week just to go teach and back. So my week was Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday morning in Lugano, Wednesday afternoon in Zurich, flying to London, teaching to Thursday, office to Friday, fly back to Saturday, and again. It was really tough and not so sustainable, but it was much more fun because we had this habits to speak about the project with the piece of paper, 1 pen in the bakery and at the office. So we were eating a lot of sweet. And we were doing these things that we always, it's funny for us to tell this. It's when you talk, just only one person talk at a time. So we were doing exactly the same things with drawing. So every time we allow only one pen, 1 paper, and when was talking, the other was drawing, and vice versa. So this was kind of our process, like in the real life. And in distance, of course, we were doing the same things, but through WhatsApp and the phone call. So our, I think, WhatsApp history, beside the 2 billion minutes of conversation, it's like 60,000 pictures or something. So it's on and forward with all the sketches and diagram. But I think next time we should put some of this. Yeah, would be funny. It's a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you.